folks. I have another friend. Hey folks, my name is Jen, and I am back again today, this time to do my wrap-up for everything that I read in December. So, over the course of December, I read 23 books. So first up, we'll go through the Christmas books that I read real quick. Thermopolis, as she is having to spend the Christmas holiday in Genovia with her father and his latest girlfriend, as well as her grandmother and some other family members. Her grandmother is planning this giant holiday ball, and royalty from all over the world is going to be there, including, funnily enough, Princes William and Harry, back when they were teenagers, I think, is basically when this was. So that's interesting. Mia has also managed to convince her dad and grandmother that she will agree to spend this holiday in Genovia if her boyfriend and her best friend can be there for the holidays as well. And shenanigans ensue, basically. So this story is cute, if not a little cheesy. It is ultimately a retelling of The Gift of the Magi, which is a short story by O. Henry. I think he was like this Western writer. I could be totally butchering that though, but it's a short story by him, which is something that I ultimately appreciated. I like this kind of retelling, even though most of it's like the crazy shenanigans that Mia finds herself in all the time. I did like that as part of this, you know, about doing what you can to find the perfect present for someone that you love. I did also forget that, you know, the shenanigans that happen are truly bonkers, especially when they involve Mia's grandmere. Another thing that I had completely and utterly forgotten was truly how truly terrible that Lily is. Lily being Mia's best friend. I forgot how much of a trash friend and human that Lily ultimately is. She is the worst. She does not believe or support her so-called best friend. She is constantly gaslighting her, manipulating her, criticizing her, making her feel like shit because of choices that she makes, choices that she doesn't make, the fact that she's a princess, which she has no control over whatever. Her dad's a prince. She had no choice to be born, and she was born the daughter of a prince. Like, that's nothing that she could control. But Lily makes her feel shit about all these things all the time. And at the end of the day, it's like, no wonder Mia was so, like, self-conscious all the time and had some, like, self-doubt and self-hatred at times. It's because she has been dealing with this crusty bitch since, like, the first grade. Like, no wonder Mia's kind of a mess. Her best friend sucks. Though, if you do want to check this book out, you will probably be confused about the family dynamics and some of the references from other, like, the other books in the series. So, you'd probably want to read the other series before you read this. And if you have read the series and you really liked it, and you haven't read this book, I do suggest it. It is just a cute, simple little Christmas story, basically. The next book that I want to talk about is Mr. Darcy's Night Before Christmas. This is by Julie Peterson, has Pemberley on the back. This is basically about as cheesy as you might expect. The resolution is way too simple. It's a bit unbelievable, but I mean, this is a take on the night before Christmas, but it's for like super fans of Pride and Prejudice. It's not really stellar, I suppose, but it accomplished exactly what it, set out to do, which is be a cute story and a different take on the classic rhyme by Clemency Moore. So, if you are a fan of Pride and Prejudice, and especially Darcy, and you're looking for a little fluff, but not like sexy fluff, I mean just like cuteness, basically, cheesiness, definitely go for it. The artwork, I think, is also cute as well, so yeah. Then moving into some of the picture books. First up is The Christmas Sled. This is by Carol North and is illustrated by Terry Super. This is a simple but cute story about siblings who go sledding with their family on Christmas Day after the girl, what's her name, Dana, receives a beautiful sled for Christmas. I think that the artwork is very cute and charming. The artwork, honestly, is, I think, the best part of this whole little book. It's just really cozy and cute. Next up, I read 1,000 Candy Santas. This is by Daphne Doward Hogstrom and is illustrated by Mary Lou Wise. It's another cute little story about how everything is basically going completely wrong at the North Pole, and Mrs. Claus has to attempt to do something to save Christmas. I enjoyed the art style. It's a little bit different than the other, but I do still think that it's pretty cute. There's all the 1,000 Candy Santas. Honestly though, I think there is potential here with this little book for something more. I know it's just like a children's picture book and is fairly basic of a tale, but I feel like this has chapter book or movie potential. You'd have to suspend disbelief a lot here. There's like a magic wizard who gave Santa all of his magical items. That's like, what? But I think upping the danger or the trouble involved and making Mrs. Claus like legit do crazy badass shit to actually really save Christmas, not just get Santa good and back on the road and stuff like that, but actually have her delivering the presents and her saving Christmas ultimately. I think that would be really awesome. I think there's the potential for like a really cool story here, and I'm honestly probably going to seek out and see if something like that exists because I want to read or watch that. Then there is The Christmas Story. This was retold by Jane Warner and is illustrated by Eloise Wilkin. So if you're Christian, you probably know Joseph and Mary go to Nazareth, have the baby, Jesus on a journey. Here we go. Shepherds, 3 wise men. You know it. The artwork in here, while it is like the tones of it, there's like soft tones. It has pleasing like color combinations that are involved. It does get a little bit creepy. The children, like really look at the children in here. This is unsettling, no? I mean, I find it unsettling. I mean, I do have to say, I mean, ultimately it's cute, I guess, but it just, is there a resemblance here between like this? Like, this is the Village of the Damned. This is a horror movie. Creepy ass kids. And then this. Like, it, legitimately, these children are creepy. They look like they are going to kill their parents with their brains. Like, also, I mean, whitewashing of people who lived in ancient Palestine. Next up was The Christmas Donkey. This is by T. William Taylor and is illustrated by Andrea Brooks. I really like the art style of this. The animals show personality in their faces, and I really like that. There is still whitewashing, of course, of people who lived in like Egypt and etc., but Was Mary blonde? Probably not. I liked, though, that the donkey is the main character and is the one who's, like, experiencing this. This was honestly well loved when I was a kid because I loved and still love animals, and donkeys are, like, legit one of my favorite animals. I mean, look at those faces. Just so stinking cute. Also, I really liked that Joseph has more of a personality in this than in, like, the typical, you know, nativity tale that you'll see. I liked that he was more of a person rather than someone that's just letting things happen to them. He's like, hey, there's Donkey. I'm gonna help save this donkey from the mean caravan man. Hey, I'm gonna help you. Hey, we're gonna help me bring this. Like, I liked that. I liked that. I thought that was nice. Next was this Christmas Carol book. Although admittedly I didn't really read this other than just kind of glancing through it. The art style is very interesting here. It's very kind of vintage. These are just like the traditional songs. This is illustrated by Corinne Malvern. But yeah, it's like very vintage looking. Reminds me kind of like old-fashioned Christmas cards. Though there's still a couple of creepy kids in here. Like, I don't know why you need to draw them creepy. Like, these ones aren't creepy. So, like, it can be done. Then there's 12 Days of Christmas. It's the traditional Christmas Carol. This is illustrated by Mike Eagle. The artwork here also kind of has like a vintage feel to it, albeit a different version of vintage. I do like the bits of personality that really show on the characters' faces, especially on the main couple throughout the story. Honestly, though, reading through this and looking at everything made me think that, you know, this song is actually a little bit creepy when you really sit down and you read the lyrics and kind of ponder on them. Like, you can't, like, you're gifting drummers, pipers, lords, ladies, maids. Like, you can't gift another person to someone. Like, that's illegal, yo. And it's also completely immoral. But I know I think it's like supposed to be some kind of metaphor, or also maybe it's not really gifting, it's just like they're there to perform for his true love. I don't know, but I'm probably thinking way too much into this. I mean, the artwork is pretty solid, and it's cute looking at least. Next is Jingle Bells. This is, I mean, the song, but it's like a new story based upon the song, and this was written by Kathleen N. Daly, and it was illustrated by J.P. Miller. I really like the artwork, and I believe this artist has done, like, other artwork for some of the more older Golden books. Just, like, I really like the silhouettes. I think that's really cool. I like this inventive take on Jingle Bells. It just takes the traditional song and turns it completely on its head, and it adds animals, so you know I loved this when I was a kid. Something I do have to say though, so when I posted, like, I recorded this read on my Goodreads, I remember looking through some of the other reviews, and they ended up taking this tale, like, super seriously, like, really seriously. Honestly, probably a lot more seriously than you should take your typical picture book. And a big part of their problem seemed to be having the animals eat or want to be at a table with a turkey that you can consume, while there's like an ostrich and herbivores and shit at the table, which I get. You know, I understand if you really start to think about it, that is a little weird and awkward. But it's a picture book. Cats, dogs, bears, seals, ostriches, and rabbits, and a pig are not going to hang out together. Like, that sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke. Like, they're not going to spend time together not trying to eat each other. Like, that's just not going to happen, first of all. And, I mean, honestly, you know, if your family can, like, make a couple of extra items for your vegan ass at Christmas to eat, Mrs. Claus can make sure that the seal and the cat have fish and the pig has corn, so everybody can be happy in what they're having for Christmas dinner. Plus, I mean, pigs eat anything. Like, I'm sure that besides the corn, he also ate the carrots and the plum pudding, and honestly, probably the turkey. I mean, pigs can be used to get rid of human bodies. So, like, just saying. It's a kid's book, so you need to suspend your disbelief a little bit. The Night Before Christmas was the next thing that I read. Actually, I read this on, like... No, it wasn't Christmas Eve. I read it before because I did a video where I read this. But yeah, this is the classic rhyme by Clementine Moore. This one is illustrated by Kathy Wilburn. Again, the artwork is delightful. A little bit vintage, very pretty. Basically, exactly what you'd expect, like, a classic cozy Christmas book to look like. Plus, I really love the little details that are included in here, like the rabbit that's through all of the outside photos. Then you get, like, the little details of the various items in the house and the details of, like, the toys. I really enjoy that aspect of this book. And, I mean, it's a classic poem with nicely done pictures. I mean, what's not to like about this, really? And I also read Santa's Toy Shop, which is a tale adapted by Al Dempster. This is illustrated actually by the Walt Disney Studio. I think this is actually based on a Disney short. Again, it has like a vintage look to it, but this time very much like Disney-fied kind of vintage artwork look to it. I do really like the looks of it. I think it's just really charming and cute, although I do have to admit, the elves do look the same. Like, they look like clones of each other, and I guess that part's a little creepy, I suppose. But this is just a cute little story about Santa wanting to play with the toys that he and the elves have made and not really getting a chance to do it before Christmas because he's so busy. You know what? I can't really blame Santa for wanting to play with the toys. When I was shopping for my husband's little cousins in December, I honestly was feeling a little bit of FOMO because the toys that are out now are really cool. Honestly, I also really like the ending. You know, Santa stopping by the last house so he can get a chance to set up the toys and play with them a little bit. And the question is asked of, do you think that's the house that Santa's going to stop at this year? Like, your house is the last house he's going to stop at. And I kind of liked that. I like that little bit that leaves kids to wonder, you know, will Santa spend extra time at their house, setting up the toys for them and enjoying their presents a little bit. I think him leaving like a sweet note for the kids about how much he enjoyed playing with their toys and setting them up for them would be a nice idea, you know. Wink, wink. Parents, you feel me? Again, another cute tale was The Littlest Christmas Elf by Nancy Buss, and this is illustrated by Terry Super. He is the same artist who did the artwork for the Christmas Sled. So again, we have like the charming art here, like the characters are a little curvy, they got little cute rounded cheeks. And it's just like got like soft tones, bright colors, super sweet. I really liked the underlying message in this book. I think I talked about it in like when I was going over like the Christmas books in my like Christmas Eve video, that I really liked the underlying message in this book about, you know, just because you're the littlest doesn't mean that you're useless. There are things that you can do. I think that's a really good message, especially for like little kids who might get, you know, yelled at or people being impatient with them because, you know, they're not quite tall enough to reach things, they're not quite big enough to do other things, they're not quite strong enough to like help with certain activities that maybe their older siblings or like adults or other people are able to do. You know, everybody kind of figures out how to do things at their own pace, and some like chores and various things you kind of have to grow into just because you need a little more experience or more dexterity or whatever, which we kind of usually gain as we get, grow up. I really liked that kind of messaging, that it's like, it's not that they can't, it's just that they can't do things the exact same way as someone else, and maybe there are other things that they can help with that they are good at, and that's fine too, just it's really good to be able to find something else that you are good at, or maybe have friends who are supportive of you and can help you see the things that you are good at. I really liked that, and I thought that was kind of nicely done for a very short, quick little children's picture book. And I also read I Can't Wait Until Christmas by Linda Lee Mayfair, and this is illustrated by Joe Ewers. One of those, I'm sorry. Sesame Street books get extra points with me due to nostalgia, largely. This is a cute story that kids can probably relate to, dealing with the excited anticipation leading up to Christmas. I also really liked the detail in here that what Big Bird is most excited about for Christmas is not just Christmas Day itself and being able to see what he got, but he is mainly extremely excited to give his granny the present that he made her, that he knows she's going to love, and he can't wait for her to see what he made for her. And I think that's super sweet. It's a little bit different than, just being jazzed about what presents you might get. I thought that was just really adorable, and I also thought that the artwork in here is just very cute. I love the Muppets, especially Sesame Street, and they're just charming anytime they're involved in anything. And yeah, I just really liked revisiting this book again. Then I also read The Nutcracker. This is a retelling by Rita Balducci and is illustrated by Barbara Lanza. I really liked the art style in here. I think it's very colorful, and I love the little details. But I do honestly have slight problems with how Clara is done. In this, she looks a little older than what she's supposed to be. In this photo and this picture and a couple of other pictures, she looks almost like she's supposed to be a teenager, and I think she is. It doesn't really say her age, but she's a little girl and she's getting a doll, so it kind of seems like maybe she's supposed to be younger-ish, maybe 9, 10, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but she does look a little older than she's supposed to be. But at the same time, that might ultimately have been a wise choice, because when you get around to the Nutcracker prince, he looks like a grown-ass man, so that's kind of creepy. But ultimately, this is a children's book, and I am probably thinking way too much about this in general, to be honest. Then I read How Do You Wrap a Horse? This is by Diana Clement, and the watercolors are by Chris L. Demarest. Well, the watercolors are just absolutely delightful. This is one of the best parts about this book. This is about a brother and sister, Charles and Jenny, which is something I enjoyed when I was little and went by Jenny. They desperately want to get their mom something great for Christmas, and remember how she said she missed riding horses, and they decide they are going to give her a horse for Christmas. This is just really cute. I can definitely remember trying to talk my parents into turning our garden shed into a stable when I was a little kid, and that was a big fat no from them. But I really like that. I thought that was very cute. I like that they read A Christmas Carol on Christmas Eve, their dad read that to them. That made me happy. And also this scene of the kids trying to figure out how to wrap the horse is pretty funny as well. This is just all around a sweet, sweet story, and I think it's just absolutely delightful and adorable. Then I read, and also read to y'all if you watched that video, Two Brothers by Eugene Schwartz. This is translated from the Russian by Elizabeth Reynolds Hapgood, and it is illustrated by Gabriel Lazowski. In the beginning part of this book is a dedication from Elizabeth Reynolds Hapgood when she translated this. And it says, "This book is dedicated to all who believe in kindness. Kindness melts the ice. Eugene Schwartz believed that. I hope you do too." And that's just so sweet. Like, it's such a sweet dedication, while at the same time also kind of pointing out the ultimate point of this book, you know, that kindness does melt the ice, and kindness is probably one of the greatest things in the world. I love the message behind it. I love the message behind this book. But I also really like that this book also addresses ultimately not only like the bad behavior of Big Brother when he's kind of really mean to his younger brother for bothering him, but I like that it also kind of talks a little bit about, well, little brother also needs to learn some more patience as well. You know, he also, I like that it kind of addresses both of those. The artwork in here is, I guess, like fairly simple, but it's effective. It kind of reminds me of wood carvings almost, which really fits in with this story since they live in a cabin in the woods and their father is a forester. The beginning as well to this tale is just classic fairy tale. Like, says, "Trees do not know how to talk. They stand still, rooted to one spot, yet they are alive. They breathe. They grow all their lives. Even huge, ancient trees grow every year. And just as shepherds care for their flocks, so do the foresters look after their woods." And then it goes right into Once Upon a Time. And I just love that. It feels like the classic story. It almost feels like something that you would tell while sitting around the fireplace in the winter, rather than just something that you would read out of a book. And I really kind of like that feel to it, and that kind of oral feel to this story overall. And it's a really good story, and I think it has a really good message behind it. Then I read The Christmas Trolls by Jan Brett. This is written and illustrated by them. The story overall I think is based in like Norway. I am not Norwegian, so I am not 100% sure if this is like accurate to what, you know, Norway looks like, or what Norwegian people, or maybe Norwegian people a long time ago looked like, but it looks exactly what your typical clueless American, i.e. me, thinks that Norway would look like. So there's detailed carvings, there's colorful patterns, Christmas treats, snow, reindeer, all that jazz. It's a nice story about sharing and the power of sharing, even though like the trolls try to steal Christmas. And the trolls are a little creepy. I think in my other video I showed you what the trolls look like, and the trolls do look a little bit scary, but I mean, and they're kind of thieves, but you know what? They don't quite understand what Christmas is about and how that works, so I guess that makes sense. Playful parts about this book, there's a reindeer. They have a reindeer instead of like a horse or a donkey, and that's pretty awesome. The artwork, like, my god, guys, the artwork in this is just absolutely just gorgeous. Look at the details of it. I am absolutely obsessed with Treva and Sammy's like house. Like, it's just so beautiful. It's just so incredibly beautiful. There's like beautiful carvings inside and out. Trolls tree house, like, look how beautiful that is. And I love like the little side pieces where there's other parts to the tail, and I think that's just absolutely gorgeous. Like, it feels like these are just such such cozy homes, ultimately. Like, look at this. Like, it looks like such a cozy home in the winter. It almost feels like you can hear the fireplace crackling and smell the wood smoke and pine sap and food cooking nearby. It feels like, you know, you're right there in the story, and I really like that, and this is probably one of the most gorgeous picture books I have ever owned, to be honest. It's just incredibly beautiful. Then, I did have a couple of books that are actual, like, chapter books, or, well, actually, a couple of chapter books and a couple of poetry books that I read. The first of which was Amos Love, which is a collection of new and selected poems by Billy Collins. This is actually taken from a couple of his other collections. It varies overall on theme. So the book is called Amos Love, and at the heart of it there is like a lot of love poems or love kind of involved in this, but the poems do kind of vary from topics such as love to those of like relationships ending, from happiness and contentment to sadness and sadness, and also some thoughts on like death, which honestly had me feeling a little bit kind of down and morbid for a little while. One of my favorite poems in here is called No Time. And it is a favorite, though mainly it's because it had me laughing. So it says, in a rush this weekday morning, I tap the horn as I speed past the cemetery where my parents lie buried, side by side under a smooth slab of granite. Then, all day long, I think of him arising up to give me that look of knowing disapproval, while my mother calmly tells him to lie back down. And like, I mean, that's a little, it's a little morbid, but I like it because it's just, it's kind of funny, and I can like just picture that, not so much like with my parents, but like just something that my like grandparents would be like. So I don't know. I think it's just really kind of funny. This also includes a poem that Billy Collins wrote for the victims of 9/11, which I remember being a like huge thing back when I was in high school. I believe we read it and like, you know, covered it, like took it apart and everything like that. And the poem itself is called The Names, and I would like highly recommend that you check it out. I like his poems overall because Billy Collins has like a no bullshit kind of way of expressing things. He does use like metaphors, but he's not, you know, ridiculously flowery or overly symbolic with his words. He's fairly straightforward with the point. Honestly, one of a couple of poets that I would recommend if you are unsure about where to start with poetry. And I mean, I would also just suggest this collection as a good like overview of some of his works, but also be prepared to feel like you could begin to have an existential crisis if you read one more line about the impending death in your later years, because that's like an underlying thing that's in here. And if that is something that you also struggle with, or something that, you know, pops into your head and keeps you up until 3 a.m., maybe take it slow with this collection, I will say. So someone else who is pretty straightforward in their poetry is Rudy Francisco. I also read in December his debut collection, Helium. This is just such a great collection. I'm sure you've probably heard me talk about him before, or you've seen his videos on Button Poetry, on Instagram, on YouTube. He's like all over the place. He also recently, I believe, helped out with a challenge for a love reality show. I think it was The Bachelorette. I could be wrong, but I think it's like some kind of dating show, and he helped like the men in it. I think it was The Bachelorette. He helped like the men in it figure out how to express themselves better, and like that's pretty cool. I haven't watched it because I don't really like reality dating shows, but I do want to see if I can find some clips of him in action because that's pretty awesome. But like I've probably said it before, especially when I was talking about like his latest poetry collection, I'll Fly Away, which I read in January of 2021, but his poems can simultaneously feel like a punch in the gut and a warm hug. It's just conflicting emotions. This collection contains some of his poems that I know I've like seen video performances of him doing before, and I really like seeing them in their original versions because a couple of the poems in here, it seems like he edited them for performance or he combined them for performance. Rudy is like a master of making you feel all kinds of things while reading his poetry. This collection tackles relationships, family, being honest to yourself and to others about yourself, depression and dealing with it, and also talking about his place in the world as a man and also as a young black man. I loved every piece in here. I just, like I said, it is such a comforting but also like a gut-wrenching like work sometimes, and I could read you like a whole bunch of my favorites in here because a lot of them were my favorites, but I'm gonna stick with one quick one. This is called Haunted. On days like this, I am the house and the ghost, responsible for my own haunting. My brain is a revolver with "am I good enough" in every chamber. So I turn into a factory that only makes the word yes, and I say it until it can easily be mistaken for the truth. My voice shakes, and the answer still sounds like a question. Then I also read 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith, and there are illustrations in here. There's Cruella de Vil looking particularly scary, by Michael Dooley. So, that's cute. If you don't know what 101 Dalmatians is about, I don't know where you've been exactly. Basically, there's Pongo and Mrs. Pongo. If you've only ever seen the movie, you might be a little confused. You think Perdita is Pongo's wife. No, Perdita in this story is actually a another Dalmatian who has lost her own puppies and ends up being taken in by the Dearleys to kind of help Mrs. take care of her puppies, because 15 puppies is a lot for one dog to like deal with at a time. Cruella de Vil is like an evil acquaintance of Mrs. Dearly, and she's really into furs, and she really wants to have Dalmatian fur coats, especially using like the skins of puppies, but not like tiny puppies, like old enough puppies basically. It's creepy, you probably know it. She ends up having someone dog nap the puppies. Pongo and Mrs. go off to find them. It's a whole journey. It's cool. Things that I liked about this, I like the sense of humor, although you know, it does have a decent sense of humor. It has like that kind of very dry British wit to it at times, which I find particularly charming, although there are parts of the humor that are a little bit dated, because this is like, you know, this is an old book. This was originally published in 1956, and it definitely shows it. A little bit that bothered me, you know, Mrs. Pongo, her name is Mrs. She has no other name. She's perfectly content being Mrs., I guess. That's just awkward. Then we have the case of her not really being able to count, not really being able to tell her right from her left. just not being as intelligent as the male dogs are in this story, and then having the male dogs kind of look at her indulgently, which is just another way of saying they're being kind of condescending. There's also, you know, a little bit of bigotry in here. There's a scene where they encounter on their journey thieving gypsies, which, you know, is not cool. They don't like to be called that. That's actually like a slur. They're actually the Romani, and their culture is pretty awesome, but I mean, this is like an older book, so like that kind of rude viewpoint was like acceptable and I think supported at the time, but it most certainly like dates this book a lot. Besides that part and the less smart female dogs, there's also the poor browbeaten husband of Miss Cruella de Vil. And it's like, please, the man's a furrier. I have like zero sympathy for him, to be honest. Otherwise than that, the bits of humor that are in here I do think are pretty good. I love the individual puppies and how they have like their own personalities. Not everyone has a personality, but the ones that do come up a lot do have their own, which I find delightful. I also really liked all the animals that they encountered along the way. And honestly, this book and the movie made me want that many dogs as a kid. I now, as an adult with 2 cats, cannot imagine having that many dogs. I can't even imagine having one at this point, because that's like a lot of energy that I don't currently have. So I'd say if you're curious about the origin story of where the animated or live action 101 Dalmatians came from, definitely check this out, but do keep in mind that this is like an older book and there's some viewpoints in here that are pretty outdated. So it's basically like, you know, at the beginning of some of Disney's more older movies that have like questionable depictions of people in it, like consider that warning in the front of it, that this is outdated and we don't support this. This was never okay, and we're letting you know now that it was never okay, and it's still not okay, and, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Another book that I read in December was The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson. This is a charming little tale that follows Yanka. When Yanka was a toddler, she was found outside of a bear cave and was adopted by her foster mom. Yanka has always been a little bit different. She's taller and stronger than the other kids in the village, and is even stronger than some of the adults. She is known around the village as Yanka the Bear because of her strength. One day, she wakes up and suddenly she has bear legs. She seems to be like turning into a bear. So Yanka ends up going into the forest, which people tend to avoid because of how scary it is. But she goes into the forest because it has been calling to her, and she wants to figure out why she has bear legs and the secrets of her past, like where she came from, why she was found outside of a bear cave. This is such a delightful story. This talks about family, both the family, like your biological family, and also the family that you make, the family that adopts you, that loves you. Like, it's has to do with like friendship, finding out parts of your past, finding out more about yourself. It's such an incredibly delightful tale. I believe it is set in like Russia, so it has some treats from there, which, by the way, are really good. Like, one of the sweet cookies that is mentioned in here is pryaniki, and I actually made it for Christmas. If I took a picture of it, I can't remember if I took any pictures, but if I did take like a picture or video of it, I will insert it here so you can see. It's like this delightful cookie. It's like a spice cookie, but it's like made with like, well, this recipe that I used made like with coffee and tea and spice cake and like candied orange peel, and it was freaking phenomenal, to be honest. It's a pain in the ass to make, but it's definitely worth it. But besides like the food descriptions in here, which are great, the descriptions in general of the land, the animals is just fantastical. We meet such a quirky cast of characters. There's bears in it. I love bears. They're my favorite animal. That was part of the best part. I also really just loved how the story is told. It is interspersed between the actual story as well as like fairy tales that have been told to Yanka as she has been growing up. And I really liked how those are in here and how the stories are framed and how they are fantastical but have some truths in them that also play an important role with the rest of the story as well. I just found this entire experience to be freaking wonderful. This is a new favorite of mine, and I desperately want to read Sylvia Anderson's other book, The House with the Chicken Legs. Yeah, I just really loved the experience of reading this, and yeah, like I said, this is a new favorite for me. The last thing that I read in December was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This was a reread because I wanted to actually finish the trilogy. I'm currently reading Book 2, A Gathering in Shadows. This is about Cal, who lives in Red London, and he is one of the Antari, which are magicians who are able to use blood magic to travel between various worlds. Red London is where a lot of magic resides. Grey London that he travels to is basically our London. There's no magic there. And then there is White London, where some baddies reside, and there's tiny bits of magic left, but it's really not good, and the price you pay for it is not great. So Kel ends up coming across an artifact from Black London that should not exist. All hell breaks loose. Kel is a part of the royal family, sort of, so you also get to meet Rye, who's his like adoptive brother, who is just great. Then you have the thief Lila Bard, who is from our world, who dreams of becoming a pirate. You know, just a cast of quirky characters all around. I loved slipping back into this world. Red London sounds absolutely fascinating, and I really liked seeing all the characters again. Lila is a badass. There is a part of me, though, that almost feels like sometimes she's too much of the, like, super tough, not like other girls, female trope. I'm wondering how this will develop in the rest of the series. I do like the slight bit of growth that she shows, especially towards the end of the book, involving like how she deals with other people. And I'm hoping that there is more like character development in her over the course of the series, because it's not a trope that I hate, but it is a trope that can come on really strong sometimes, and I would like to see her be more than that. Kel. I loved Kel. Kel's awesome. Rye is wonderful. He's a bit much, but boy is he charming. I'm picturing him in my head as this, like, I don't know, like a cross between every supremely flirty, sarcastic character I've ever met in fiction. I'm just picturing him as those in my head, and I love him. Fuck White London, first and foremost. There is a lot of imagery involving blood, cutting, throat slitting, and stabbing in here. There's also an attempted assault. So if those things are particularly upsetting or troublesome for you, just be forewarned that content is in here. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to finishing this series. I want to know so much more about this world than what's in here. I can't wait to see it expand with the next 2 books. This was a wonderful reread. And that's it, folks. That is everything that I read over the course of December. I cannot really imagine that I figure out how I managed to fit 23 books into the month when I was incredibly busy, but it probably helped that most of them were like picture books that I was just kind of reading for the hell of it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a wonderful January, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!